the past couple of years. And speaking of disappointments,
Da-da-da.
let's talk about the Star Wars Episode 9 trailer. Now, look, I'll admit, like, I can kind of see how some people could be like hyped
Hey,
about
it got my friend back who absolutely hated The Last Jedi, where he's like, yeah, but it's got this. I'm like, oh no, 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 don't do this to me.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trap, I find.
It's a trap, literally.
Quite literally. I mean, you see, okay, so even from the beginning, right? You have Rey deep breathing or whatever,
Like
and
she always does in every other Star Wars film she's in.
yeah, looking all emotionless like usual. And oh, okay, yeah, she shows some emotion when she does the backflip and stuff. But it's like, all right, and are people supposed to be? Oh, that's so cool that she did a backflip.
Pretty much. Like, have you seen those crowd
What?
reactions? Where they're just like, man, I love this Matrix stuff in Star Wars. Like, it's just like, okay, my whole thing is like, it's, like, I just want to know the time period between this and The Last Jedi.
I think there's a big time skip.
I hope so, because, the whole thing of like, because even in the trailer, like, Luke's like, I taught you everything I know. I'm like, did you? You taught her nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. There's still no training involved. That's what I'm saying. There has to be that
maybe
big
he comes
gap.
back as a Force ghost.
Well, I hope so. There has to be something to explain her training per se, because the whole thing of like Rey can do a lot of things that no one can really understand is technically true. It's like because that's the thing. There was a gap between 4 and 5 for Star Wars. Like Luke had training. He got his ass kicked. Remember, he got his hand cut off, and then there's a gap between that and then episode 6. And so in episode 6 they established like he's a full blown kind of like you would say a Jedi master at that point. He's got his skills. You don't see it on the screen. But he constructed his whole lightsaber. He did all these like little training things that made him to that point. Now I'm hoping this movie does something along those lines where it's just like, she's actually been training for this long to be really good with not only the Force but good with combat. I feel like that would fix a lot of things. And once again, it is J.J. Abrams, so like since he is a big fanboy as well, I'm pretty sure he knows a lot of this, and he's probably just like, I need to make it in a way to be like to make this kind of a point of contention, because still like Rey is just really good at everything. With no real explanation.
I've said it before that her character is a Mary Sue character. Again, I hate kind of using the term because obviously that can kind of like annoy people, but she kind of fits the mold like perfectly. So hopefully, they explain why she does the things she does. Not the jump. The jump's fine. I mean more like, okay, like she's gonna be a badass character and she's gonna do all this shit. Like hopefully there's a lot more cooler things she does. Yeah. Apparently I've heard that apparently the lightsaber she uses is the one, is like
the one
Luke's.
that broke.
The one that is Luke's one that broke?
I think so. That was the one
I thought that's the one he tossed away.
Yeah, but obviously she kept it.
Oh.
Went to the station or whatever, and then like after that fight in the throne room, they had that little like Dragon Ball Z anime fight where like they put the Force together and there's like the lightsaber in the middle and they broke it, and that was basically symbolism for breaking the Star Wars fan base, which is actually really fun. Thinking of as much as like you see in the trailer, like Kylo Ren's redoing his like mask, which is like, everyone's like, yeah, that's symbolism, for mending episode 8. But, I still think in the end, like, the best character in these new movies is Kylo, and taking away the mask persona definitely changed his character.
Oh my god, it ruined him. Having him take that mask off in episode 7 ruined his character, in my opinion. And then having him be maskless, and then, oh, that mask is stupid. Throw it. And then they smash it, and it's like, obviously Rian Johnson's attempt to like, be subversive. But then it's like, now we just had to have like Adam Driver's weird face on the screen and weird voice that's not modulated in any way. Like, it's so dumb. And then it's like, oh, every generation has a legend. All right, mate, whatever.
Yeah, so it's like, it was Luke. It was always that's my whole problem. Like, Luke has been the chosen one. In a sense, and let's just get into it right now. This is called Rise of the Skywalker, and clearly this is not probably going to be Luke because he's already risen, unless he's actually coming back, unless he's coming back from the dead or something. I don't know. Maybe it's a weird Easter thing. Either way, my whole thing is there's only real two choices here. It's either Rey or it's Kylo. And it's like,
Yeah.
or it could be both, and do like a scream where it's like,
Ooh.
it was both of them all along. You didn't think about that, but it's like, I don't know, because I don't care with the whole Rey's parents thing. But the problem with that was in episode 7 they built it up as something.
Yeah, and then they're like, ooh, it doesn't matter.
It has to mean something. My whole thing is that does it like.
I think Rey's parents can't be anyone important anymore because they already established it.
Yeah, but maybe it was a lie though.
Nah,
maybe it was a lie to trick her, and they'll be like,
yeah. But what about when she went? But what about when she went into that weird place where it showed mirrors of her for some reason that I don't, which is so dumb.
Oh yeah,
it's supposed to be like, you mean nothing, and the universe means nothing.
Yeah, well that's
Star Wars means nothing
basically. But that's my whole thing with this movie is that this should have been pretty much episode 8. I feel like this movie is like there should be like another movie. This is like fixing everything to get it to a good trajectory.
Could you imagine if after this they're like, oh, by the way, it's not a trilogy, it's a quadrilogy?
It's like, oh my god.
I would actually not be like, if this episode kind of redeems it, I would allow it. Like no one says that Star Wars has to be a trilogy. I kind of hate the notion that it has, like, stories have to be told in 3 parts, right? Like, not to say that everything should be 3 or more or something, because obviously, you can lead to like some really bad movies, such as like the Transformers movies. That's kind of been going on for so long. Although I've heard good things about Bumblebee, but like you get my point, right? Like it doesn't have to be 2 movies, or it can be 2 movies, or it can be 3, or it can be 4, if the story that you're going to say is interesting and builds up a lot of kind of, good faith with the people, and has a lot of interesting things to kind of show you in the Star Wars universe. I don't think they've done that really well so far. It's like a lot of it is like more of the same. Which also another thing I'd like to point out, the a couple of weeks ago when I was mentioning about the leak of the poster, turns out that poster is correct in some capacity, because obviously it's not like the official poster, but it's like the pre or like the alpha version of the poster, because a lot of the clothing, a lot of the shots are very similar to what we've seen, which also means maybe red stormtroopers. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think we saw the stormtroopers, the red ones.
No, we didn't. But I mean, it could mean that it's true, and it also, again, it might be true that we will have the Knights of Ren popping up randomly. One of the people mentioned that, oh, maybe he's like fighting some of the Knights of Ren in that shot where he like uses the hilt of his lightsaber to stab someone, and
I don't know,
push him to the ground. And it's like, why not just stab him or slice him? It just seems like really dumb, and it's like I hate it, because usually that should be something cool, but this movie, it tends to try to be cool in the wrong way.
Yeah, in a sense, and I think it's attracted to the same thing. Like, everyone's talking about how what's his name, Poe, pretty much looks like Nathan Drake from the Uncharted 3 box art, like very much Indiana Jones like. He's got like he looks like
I
that.
kind of feel like Finn and Poe are kind of they're both the Harrison Jones in like character in this episode. Like, they're both trying to be Han Solo at the same time, but then therefore neither of them have like an identity, right?
Yeah, they're very bland, and like I think the whole problem is like in episode 8 they were separated. Like the whole like Finn doesn't need to be there. They were there, and then he's separated again, and then no one even knows where like the connection between Rey and Finn is like literally nothing. Like after episode 7, like it's very weird. So like. Yeah, I don't know, relationship stuff, or even like the whole point with Lando Calrissian. Like, it's cool, it's good fan service. We know, everyone's gonna cheer to that. But the problem is like, why? Like, is it just because I'd be happy if he was just gonna take the Millennium Falcon and basically control it and make it his, because it is his after all. Because with episode 7 they were trying to be like, and Rey's gonna inherit the ship, and then it was like, I don't know about that, guys. What about Chewie?
Yeah. What about Chewie? Exactly. There's like some people complaining about, I remember seeing like the jetpack stormtroopers. I didn't care too much about that. That doesn't seem very unrealistic for Star Wars. It seems more appropriate for Star Wars, if anything.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
there's been jetpacks in the past. You know,
I think
I think it
so.
was just
Yeah,
the Mandalorians mostly use it. You know, Boba Fett, Jango Fett, but like there are packs.
yeah, that's true. And the big thing, another big thing is you see Carrie Fisher in the trailer as well. Just kind of seeing I guess the last moments we'll have with her as Princess Leia. Like we don't know how they're going to send the character off like in this episode. Obviously it's going to be very it's going to be very touchy in terms of how they do it. So hopefully they do it in a pretty tasteful way. As much as I do hate her character in episode 8, or rather what they do with her character,
Mm-hmm.
Princess Leia is just iconic, right? Like in terms of
She
finally
pretty
like,
much is a cinema icon, like of
yeah.
all time. You know.
And it also kind of fits very well with the branding of Disney as being like, a Disney princess, like quite literally, right? Um, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with them. Apparently, like, the team kind of get together, and they're going to explore like an old piece of the Death Star that has maybe the Emperor in it because we hear his laugh, and I'm just like, they're making the mistake. Okay, I don't know if you know about this, Don, but in the extended Star Wars universe, the Emperor doesn't die at the end of episode 6.
Like I
It
think
turns out to be
like yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
it,
continue. Yep.
yeah, it turns out to be like a clone of the Emperor, and then there's like this big thing about clones and like, oh well, is this one really him? Who knows? No, it isn't. And then it's just like this really kind of lazy writing. I think a lot of people really hated because obviously it kind of ruined the extended unit. Obviously, they won't necessarily have the whole clone aspect. Like they'll probably just be like, "Oh, he didn't really die. He
Well,
just
it's a whole
fell
Darth
down the
Plagueis thing.
shaft."
It's the whole Darth
What?
Plagueis thing where it's like in episode 3
Or Darth
explaining.
Maul?
Well,
Darth Maul,
the Darth
right?
well, Darth Maul survived as well, but it's like episode 3, the whole thing where Palpatine is talking to Anakin is like, do you know about the Darth Plagueis the
Darth
Wise, where he
Plagueis, yeah.
basically he survived because he can move into different forms, into different people, and kind
Well,
of
yeah.
revive. So it's like
Well, but
almost like maybe he did learn that type of power and then could somehow revive into another spirit because
but I
because
think
the whole
but I
thing is
think
like
it's
Luke
kind of
says like no one ever really dies. So
but I
it's like,
but I
so
think
then at
they
that
kind
point
of
maybe he
explain
doesn't
it.
die.
But I think they kind of explain it as the Emperor kind of learns how to take the life force of others in order to give, people he loves or people he values life. Because I think that's kind of like the theory behind why Queen Amidala dies in episode 3, and Anakin survives because, Darth Sidious basically takes her life force and gives it to Anakin, right? I think that's very much. I don't know if it's officially been confirmed, but I think the fan theory behind that has some legitimacy. So again, like he could be survived, but I think it's so lazy. They literally could have done this with what's his face, in who died in episode 8. Like
Oh yeah,
I don't
Snoke.
even remember
Like
his character.
Snoke. Because like,
Snoke.
that's in there. They could have, but there was that was pretty much like, as I was mentioned before, it's J.J. Abrams being like, yeah, we have to fucking fix this because like, episode
Yeah,
8 does not lead anywhere. Like episode 8 feels like an end of something. Like there's no more you can go from here, but like completely plummeting down. And it's actually really funny because I think that the news report said that like JJ confronted George Lucas. He's just like, hey, where do I go from here? Because it's like, yeah, because the whole thing was I think George Lucas had a script for 7, 8, 9 before Disney even bought them out, and Disney's like, nah, we're not going to use them. We're going to do our own thing. And I think that was that was the main problem. I feel like it's like if you based it off the original person's like content and how they felt, I think everything would be a very different story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very much like people said that about Game of Thrones as well. Like like the new seasons, maybe they're not going to be as good because they're not having the full vision of the creator, but at least like they have George as a consultant of some kind in terms of like dictating what happens. Like in this, it's just like as I've said before on this podcast, it's bad when people want George Lucas to come back to the franchise. And yeah, like I think for Star Wars in particular, like it I don't know. It's very weird. Like having the Emperor back is like it's something they should have done with Snoke, and having Snoke be Darth Pelagius. That was everybody's big prediction. And they just ruined it because it would have been better if like, oh, it's actually Darth Pelagius who's Snoke, and he's actually been the one who has been manipulating Rey this whole time, to be his Padawan. That's why she has the giant staff, because the staff resembles his lightsaber and all that kind of stuff. Like all this stuff was predicted by people, but instead, like you see, the fans can sometimes write better than the writers themselves. Is the kind of an example of that. You know, these big Hollywood types that kind of like look at all these things, and I think a lot of the time they look at Star Wars and just think like, you know, yeah, I can easily write something for this, but then it just comes out as this cookie cutter, generic, corporate, like, you know, piece of shit.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They would have to go through so many checks because, you know, I think it's like a meme at this point where people are just like, you get a good script, or it's something creative, but then like you go through like a table meeting or board with people, and they're just like, it needs this, this, and this, and then it completely ruins the ideal and intent of the film. I think like one of the major examples that we've seen in recent memory is the Fantastic Four movie that came out with Fox, with the Josh Trank one, where you know, he filmed a particular version of that thing where you would say it's kind of like it's a very different part of superhero genre, where it's like, I want to tell my story of like superhumans being used as weapons by the government, and instead of trying to help people, they're kind of contracted to do this because they're basically prisoners and that they're forced to do it. And then the studio is like, we want a traditional superhero film, and then they had to rewrite half the thing, and the other thing just didn't match.
Well, I didn't end up ever watching the new Fantastic Four or Fantastic Four or whatever people want to call it. They put that four in the middle or whatever. Like, I never ended up watching it because I never ended up watching a lot of movies that are kind of considered bad superhero films. Like, I never watched the Green Lantern movie. I never watched you know, the movie that you were just talking about either. Like, I only kind of go to movies that are kind of at least like universal. Like, most people kind of praise it in some capacity, not universally hate it. You know?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I guess we can move on to our other subject, and